Hey, thanks for listening. Please subscribe to our newsletter at theproductporch.com for notifications on the latest episodes and exclusive content.
We've all played enough sports where we saw that kid on the team who walked into practice with a brand new baseball glove and the ground ball got past them. What did they do? They looked at their equipment like there was something wrong. Meanwhile, the better players, you could give them a paper towel in their hand and they could make the catch because they had the technique down. So rather than what can this large language model do, let's ask the question, what is the user's pain?
Welcome to the Product Porch with Todd Blackier, Joe Ghali, and me, Ryan Cantwell. Today on the porch, we welcome our friend Dean Peters to filter the noise and dig into a topic that many of us in product are probably feeling, the weight of AI overload. Now settle in, folks, because on the Product Porch, every topic is a product topic.
All right, so today's guest is the one, the only Dean Peters. Dean is a product leader, product strategy coach, and storyteller who has spent his career at the intersection of AI, machine learning, and real-world product strategy. He also happens to be a really good friend and former coworker. And honestly, there's no one better to talk about something we're all feeling right now, AI overload. So welcome, Dean, to the porch. It's good to have you back. It's been a while. I think it's been like...
Yeah, it's been since October of 2024.
Oh my gosh, it's been that long?
When I made accurate predictions of what AI would do in 2025.
You're like Jimmy the Greek. You're the Jimmy the Greek of AI and product management.
Okay,
But really, I can't believe it's been since October. But Dean, first of all, it's great to have you back. You're always welcome. And I feel like, Ryan, you can back me up on this, Ryan. Well, actually, Dean, I know Dean listens to our podcast, but I think we reference you at least every other podcast with a Jira ticket slinging monkey thing or whatever. I can't. And then Todd's correcting me. But we're always referencing you in our podcast.
I think it's just because of the Deanisms, right?
There are Deanisms.
Who else came up with feature hostage negotiations, or stakeholder shuttle diplomacy, or Jira slinging ticket monkey, or my favorite that I don't get to use as much anymore, hyper scrumdimentalist. So, we've all run into that person in our past, okay? So let's just leave it at that. But, and of course, the dangerous animals, right?
The dangerous animals are product manager.
It's a jungle out there, fellas.
It is. Speaking of jungle, Ryan and I and Todd were talking about this last week. I think we're all feeling it as product leaders in the product management world, this concept of AI overload, right? It's everywhere we go, whether it's in the news that you read, whether it's in LinkedIn. We hear about companies changing course, saying they're going to reduce headcount. But then the part that gets really overwhelming is the tooling piece of it.
Yeah.
Right? Because, in the past, there was a new version of Windows 95, or there was a new version of XP. There was a long duration between new operating systems launching, new tools coming out.
Right.
But it's starting to feel, I don't know about you guys, it's starting to feel a little overwhelming in terms of the number of tools and even how often they're updating it. Am I overreacting?
I didn't know people were talking about AI. I thought it was this thing that was magic. I don't know.
I even saw Teresa Torres a few months back, in frustration, it was right when everyone was losing their mind over the release of OpenClaw.
Yes.
But basically, she said, I'm not working with OpenClaw yet. I've got enough tools on my plate right now. We'll get to it, but I'm trying to solve some problems here first, which I thought was a good approach of first of all, someone like that has nothing to prove. But the other thing is, it's just for giggles. Sometimes scroll through Instagram and just see all the influencers, and they all start out with, "Your job's going to be dead if you don't sit there and learn this, tool XYZ," and and somebody, screaming at it or saying, "In 5 steps, just leave the comment, strategy in a comment there. And we'll send you our 5 steps for being able to use this new cool tool." And then that leads to a Maven course, so for $5.99, $95, almost that whole Earl Scheib industry we have. have of, we'll paint your car for you. We'll paint your car for $99.95. And it's just like, we'll teach you N8N for $595.95. But, all this tomfoolery is the way I want to call it.
Tomfoolery. I like that. So I think, Joe, I'm being incredibly sarcastic when I'm joking about AI because, Dean, I couldn't agree more. 98% of the product management newsletters I subscribe to, the weekly subject line includes the letters A and I strung together.
Oh, yeah.
And I agree. I can't keep up. It's so much stuff when it comes to AI with how do you know which one's snake oil between which one I should pay attention to?
Yeah.
That's really going to help me right now.
And I think that's caused a bit of a paralysis with some people. How many times have we talked to product managers who they admit to dabbling? They also admit to the fact, I wouldn't call myself an expert. Meanwhile, they want to stay gainfully employed. There's a lot of people out there just feeling that pressure there. And there's a lot of voices making them feel that pressure there.
Yeah. And I think that pressure is inducing a lot of anxiety because there's a lot of people with a megaphone shouting about AI, but not a lot of conversation about what to do, what is practical, what is easy. It's you can go make $900,000 a year if you become an AI product manager.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like that. Yeah. That is the smallest percentage of people.
Yeah. Just subscribe to my Substack and, then you get, and by the way, if you do that, you get the special sauce where I'm going to give you a boilerplate, something that I generated last week. Yeah. Well, I think,
and Ginzu knives. You can't forget about the Ginzu knives.
Yeah. So I think like I said, we got people who are stuck. So I feel like there's 5 states to our AI growth here. But before we even do that, I'm older than dirt, right? We all know that. In fact, I'm so old, I'm probably older than silt because that's what dirt becomes when it's no longer dirt, right? Which means I've seen a lot of silt in my time. And I've seen disruptive waves before. It doesn't mean you ignore it and walk away. But it also doesn't mean people aren't buying into it because of the shiny things. They're buying into it because it does solve some problems. It does address some pain points here. So part of this is, how do we get past the hype of the shiny things? And this is almost, I'm going, running right out of the Clay Christensen playbook here, right? Mm-hmm. Where he used the term, disruptive innovation is not about the shiny things. It's about the value it brings in meeting an underserved need. But for the people in product management, they spent maybe 2023 and 2024 falling into the category of what I call confident nonsense. Part of that was not knowing how to use AI or how it worked for them. But part of it was also just a lot of the hype. And part of it was also the tools. Then 24 to 2025, they got into that phase of enthusiastic experimenter. I think now there's a push for tool fluency. And what's happening is they're falling into an efficiency trap.
What do you mean by the efficiency trap? Can you elaborate on that?
There's a few ways we fall into this trap. We mistake doing something for delivering value. And so if we're doing something with these, I saved 10 minutes on doing discovery. Yeah, but what did you discover? Did you discover anything worthwhile? Think of it as the flywheel this way. All right, it used to take me 3 weeks to do discovery. So now I'm using these tools and it's cut it down into half a day. And so now I'm doing it in half a day, but I still got the same problem, only it's been amplified now and I don't understand why. And so here's what happened in the trap. They never really knew how to do discovery all that well. They picked up a tool to automate what they didn't know how to do really well. Basically, it's like, I discovered crap. Now the AI amplifies the crap, and now I get crap twice as fast and 10 times as big. It just can't be about speed or reducing costs that way. I'm not against it. I'm just saying that can't be the only play you're doing this for.
As a product leader, how do I actually make progress when the AI landscape is constantly changing? There are new tools being published every day. It's overwhelming. To someone that's a novice AI user, where should they start? So
where do you want to be when you grow up? Let's start with the end in mind. Okay. So for example, I said, stage 1 is the confident nonsense. Stage 2 is stage 2 is the enthusiastic experimenter. Stage 3 is that tool fluency. Stage 4 and 5 is where a lot of people, there's this gap. And that's where I'm not seeing it. So where do you need to be in those last 2 states? One of them is the workflow builder. where we look at these various machinations, whether we're trying to save time, save money, be more productive, enforce safety and compliance, or do we want to become that commercial strategist where we're trying to increase revenue, expand our market share, and nourish customer lifetime value? Are we going to use AI to help solve those underserved needs, as opposed to, again, just being stuck at stage 3 where it's like you're really good at the tools, but you're not having an impact. You are not moving the needle on operational model levers nor on business model levers.
Ryan, what's your perspective? You've been going out, you've had it, you like Dean are out there talking to different clients. What are you seeing as you're talking to other organizations from your perspective?
So I think the best place to start, and I find most people are starting out. I don't know if that's the right word to say, but they're earlier in their like adoption of AI. I will use product management terms. The advice I see, I think a good place to start isn't to go watch the demo of Claude code and download it and then try to figure it out. I think first you should find and start experimenting with some of the more accessible tools and see how they can first start creating value for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Test on yourself.
Yeah, because I'm not against the tools.
Right.
But what are you trying to learn out of it? Because the tools have the life, the half-life of a flea. But people don't realize we're in 2 disruptive cycles here, right? So first of all, we had generative, and that pushed in a disruptive cycle. I don't think anyone really noticed, and Joe, you and I talked about that back. I was like, I see another disruptive wave hitting us that's going to amplify. Now it's with agents. And I think there's going to be even a 3rd disruptive wave that comes in, and possibly a 4th in this area here. So what's happening is you're getting this compounding of wave after wave of disruption. So to Ryan's point, start with a tool and a problem you have some passion about. And think about what is the techniques for creating impact that I'm doing. So that way I can go from tool to tool to tool. I mean, we've all played enough sports where we saw that kid on the team who walked into practice with a brand new baseball glove or a brand new baseball bat and thought they were the hottest thing since sliced bread. And then when they swung and they missed, or the ball, the ground ball got past them, what did they do? They looked at their equipment like there was something wrong. Meanwhile, the better players, you could give them a stick off a tree and they'd hit the ball. You could give them a paper towel in their hand and they could make the catch because they had the technique down. So rather than what can this large language model do? Let's ask the question, what is the user's pain?
What we're saying is AI doesn't necessarily replace the problem space.
No.
Right? We know that it dramatically accelerates execution, but does it decide what problems are worth solving?
Well, okay, so there's a couple of thoughts on there, right? And there's 2 schools of thought. So I'm coming from the school of augmented intelligence. Okay, I think that ultimately that we can use the tools as an assistant to help us accelerate things that used to take us more time because there was some tedium in there. There were some things that, that just busy work or just, perfunctory things. And I think along with accelerate, it can help analyze large swaths of information for us and then provide recommendations from which we and the humans in the room make the best decision. And I think along those same lines I think it can augment us in our decision making here. So again, the question then becomes, instead of tool first, instead of optimizing on speed to output, on let's do things faster. It's like, well, let's synthesize discovery faster. Instead of reacting to new tech and getting into that paralysis, as Ryan said, let's get into targeted experimentation. Instead of thinking about gimmicky features, I had some class there was doing some, vibe coding up a low fidelity experiment. And as I dropped in, as I dropped in on them talking, I saw them say, hey, well, we can add this button. And they were featurizing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hold on a second here, guys. You just talked about 2 features. What does that features buy? What problem is it solving and for whom? How does it give the user momentum here? Because I've done that. I'm sitting here in Claude code, clickety-click, clackety-clack, hey, why don't we add that? Oh, I can add. And all of a sudden here, it's like, wait a minute, hold on, you're spitting yourself into the ground.
So what we're saying is strong product fundamentals still matter. AI does not change it.
AI is an amplifier. So if you've got bad fundamentals, it's going to amplify the bad fundamentals.
Yeah, it amplifies the good along with the bad.
So as product leaders, we have to remember we've got to make sure we understand the customer problem. We've got to make sure we can identify opportunities. We've got to, I think, and we've talked in the last couple of episodes about stakeholder alignment, like still building good relations. We had a really good conversation about politics. You still have to prioritize what's going to be important. AI doesn't take that over from a product manager. So when they're feeling overwhelmed by AI, they still have to center around those four fundamentals. Would you guys agree?
Right.
Yeah.
So again, getting back to Ryan's point, find a problem that makes sense to you and pick whatever tool helps you start learning how the AI is going to help you do that. There are things you could learn while just using plain old ChatGPT because the techniques transcend the tools. It's still about, all right, I'm working with this tool. I need to establish the context. I need to establish a contract. I need to possibly establish a constitutional, a constitutional governance to make sure things don't go off the rails. I probably have to capture chain of reasoning. But to Ryan's point, get some quick victories. We talk, think about it. How many times have we all taught product-led growth with the heart metrics there, or me teaching the Fonzie metrics, and that third A is always adoption. And adoption doesn't happen unless they get that first win during activation. Mm-hmm. I remember teaching a class, and they said, let me see some of your mobile apps. And I got in their mobile app, and I kid you not, one was putting me through 3 different forms to fill out all sorts of information. And I was like, why? What are we trying to do here? Well, we're trying to let them see if their car, something about their car in terms of resale or something like that. And I said, you don't need all that up front here. Get them to their first win. If you give them their first win, they will willingly fill out 5 pages of forms. But if you start out with 5 pages of form without the win, they will abandon. I think it's the same thing here. So think about yourself almost as, what would my first activation experience be like? What would be that quick win that would put some wind in my sails? And then start building momentum. Build a little first win, then a third win, then a 13th win, and then a 21st win. You see what I mean? It's like build on a series of wins there. And by the way, you're going to have some fails in between there. Learn from those as well.
Speaking of fails, Dean, what are some of the fails that you've seen happen, or maybe like pitfalls?
Well, like I said, I've seen, for example, I had a person I used to work with working on a tool to basically do synthetic focus groups. Yeah, synthetic focus groups.
What is a synthetic focus group?
So this is a person who came out of a UX background. Yeah. Really brilliant, really smart, and pretty good. Yeah, it's a pretty good product here as well. But while I was having an early conversation with this person, because been mentoring them, and they were like, "Well, we're trying to create synthetic users based off of personas and personalities we know, and then we put them in a room in a situation." So first of all, it's creating these synthetic users.
So a synthetic user is an AI manifestation of the person you're trying to serve, right?
Right. Yeah. And you're hopefully you're doing with data. and so you're trying to do it with data to the point where then you put them in a situation such as a focus group. Mm-hmm. You can then simulate what some of their responses might be. Mm-hmm. And you're not looking at, here's the thing, especially in non-deterministic systems, you're not looking for perfection. You're looking for enough signal to say, am I going the right direction or not? Do I have an issue here? Can this somehow raise a flag that I may not have seen under other circumstance? But you're looking for enough signal. You're also looking for things that were outside of your periphery, outside of your peripheral vision. You're like, oh, I didn't even think of that.
One that makes me laugh every time I see it is you can tell when you see a feature in a product where some leader at a company said, we need AI, go put AI in it. And it shows up as like AI chatbot or AI assistant. Or my favorite is the recent one, Adobe Acrobat. I'll summarize your PDF for you.
Yeah.
Why do I need that?
Oh yeah. Why? I'll go on just for grins. I'll go on Reddit. And sure enough, you got some product manager saying, hey, I just did this and this and this. I say, hey, that's really good. You've reinvented ChatGPT. Oh, but we're different. How? And they can't, and it's almost like, okay, product management 101. All right. Let's not solve a problem that's already been solved.
So that would fall into the traps that product teams are falling into. Is that there's a tool first thinking, right?
Yeah.
It's like they start with the assumption that they should use AI and they search for a place to kind of like tack it on to their tool. Is that, as you say, that's a big trap?
It goes that there's even more nuance than that. Like what I teach in the AI class. Not every problem is a nail in search of a generative AI hammer.
Yes.
Oh, I love that quote, Dean.
And I'm teaching that in the context of pick the right AI for the job. By the way, option number 5 or number 6 is we're not even going to use AI. Problem has already been solved with something simpler. For example, the last thing I need my physician, when they're trying to do something with a medication, the last thing I need is a non-deterministic system looking at my profile and then looking at a clinical trial results and then doing its interpretive dance version on what it means.
Dina, explain quickly what non-deterministic, what does that mean?
Okay, so generative AI is really good at creativity, but in the process, they sacrifice precision.
Yes.
Okay, so there's that trade-off. If I want precision without a lot of creativity, I move all the way back over to machine learning, maybe even expert systems. But with something in the middle, maybe I'm playing with neural nets and deep learning. But so there's that. Basically, and this is going to get some data scientists mad. That's okay, because we do that for a living. The way that system does, it doesn't save verbatim data. It saves these tokens. It saves these basically graph relationships. If you ran 100 times, Jack and Jill went up the hill, please fill in the blank. You might 80% of the time say to fetch a pail of water. It may also say to fetch a bucket of beer, to go find Todd's basketball, right? Or something like, depending on your context or something like that. And we just did that exercise today. Everyone types in ELI5 AI. ELI5 AI, just all acronyms. And everybody's using the same tool in the same context, and we're all getting different answers. Now, do I want my physician looking at something and getting, like I said, the interpretive dance version of the answer? No, at that point, think about all the machinations we go through to overcome that. Oh, well, you need to adorn that with RAG so it can actually go find the actual verbatim document,
So go back, Dean. RAG, remind us again. RAG stands for?
Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Yeah, retrieval. Yeah, so basically, okay, so I love these terms.
In dummy terms.
In dummy terms. Yeah, hang a search engine off your large language model.
It goes and looks at a particular database in a particular place. It retrieves information from that particular place.
You hopefully have a vector database or a graph database. I did one on Lenny's podcast. I took all his transcripts.
Yeah.
I put them all in a vector database. And then, oh, by the way, you have to see the new version of it, Ryan. I got a web interface for it now.
Cool.
But, I'll ask it a question like, why does safe suck in the context of AI? All right. And it actually goes and finds the actual quotes about, not for that, but, conversations and says, here's what Melissa Perry said on this date about it. Here's what Marty Kagan said on this date about it here, and then pulls that in. So it gives me the verbatim information. My tool then says, okay, you've gotten their version. Here's the Dean, what do you call it? The Deanified version, which of course, I'm going to put my, spin on top of that there. That came about because the systems aren't very good at verbatim. And what was that case we saw in 2024 where that lawyer got disbarred or nearly got disbarred because ChatGPT made up cases. I mean, the last thing you and I need is a trip to Club Fed. Okay. So they put these systems in place. The same thing with, fine tuning. Oh, you're going to take that and you're going to put a bunch of training data in there, so all these expensive mechanisms have been put in place because the problem with it not being treating it like a source of truth when it really should be a source of conversation starting. So, for example, if I bring people into a room, I draw a circle, put three squares on it. One's pains, one's gains, one's jobs to be done. And I tell them, go ahead and use your AI. Go ahead and just use a prompt by reference saying, give me the Osterwalder value proposition customer circle. All right, a pains, gains, job to be done. And then copy and paste the sticky notes and have the conversation with your team. Should you treat that like a source of truth? Absolutely not. But can I use it as a conversation starter instead of a blank canvas? Yes, you can. Can I run a Tam, Sam, and Sam as a source of truth? Probably not. But if it gives me good citations, I can nudge it to perfection. It at least gets me to 80% or 70% into the idea. So I think it's a good accelerant and a jump starter here. It's just but it is the end of the beginning of their journey, not the end of the journey.
So we talk about, okay, product managers are feeling overwhelmed. We start out by saying, first experiment, try some things out. I think Ryan, Todd and I were talking, and he gave the example of, he took a picture of his refrigerator, the inside of it. He needed a post-workout recovery meal, and the ChatGPT gave him a recipe to make something that was that was going to help him with his recovery, right? Like that was an example, right?
Right.
And so personal use, take a deep breath, use it, find some quick wins, get comfortable with it. Now you're talking about it becoming more of a conversation starter, reminding them we need to center in the problem space and, having conversation. What else though? I mean, because, from my perspective, we're talking very, very, we're still on the training wheel. Actually, there are a lot of people still on training wheels. And I don't want to talk about things like Claw and Claude and people are going to shut down. So what is a next thoughtful, easy next step for product leaders that are going into their product journey? Because still a lot of people are at the very, very beginning of their journey. What would be the next step in that?
So again, I mean, what base camp are you at first? Okay. And then what is that mountain climb? I mean, ultimately, I would wish everyone could become a competitive strategist with AI who's in product management. That may or may not happen, but can they become workflow movers instead? Can they do something like take mundane tasks? I mean, that is, for example, I heard a really good podcast by Claire Vaux, and I forget the woman's name. She has 4 kids. She homeschools them, has a busy schedule. And so she's got 4 or 5 of these open club agents running, taking care of, all these little mundane things from day-to-day things that normally she would have had to chase down herself. So she's freed up to do more valuable things. So she started with problems in mind, went ahead and did, she accelerated with the AI. She ran some small experiments, some hilarious experiments of how they went off the rails. And everyone has those stories. And that's fine. That's learning. And you learn from it, you iterate, and you repeat. And you do it with whatever your tool you're comfortable with or whatever tool's helping you solve for a job. Like I said, and don't worry about the people asking for perfection, because usually the person's asking for perfection have never really done it themselves, because this is messy. This is messy work right now.
So it's being more level-minded or level-headed, right?
Yeah.
It's taking a step back and taking a deep breath. Ryan, I haven't heard from you in a while. What are your thoughts? Where do you think some of those next steps can be in someone that's just starting out their AI journey?
Yeah, I think if we're just starting out, like I said, start experimenting on yourself, figure out what you can do. If you're getting pressure from your organization, don't just automatically say, let's do AI chatbot. Instead, ask the question of where can we create new value with the technology. But I think it would behoove you to, that's a big word, behoove. It would be good. It would be good for you to do some educating. And I think educating yourself, that is, go look to see where some other use cases are that may be similar to yours and see where it has been successful or hasn't been successful. It's okay to say, this is where it works and this is where it doesn't work.
You mean, I really like that. So in terms of, I'm going to make it up. This is not what's happening in my world, but I work in insurance. So someone that's new that comes in our organization, one way we could guide that person, what you're saying, Ryan, is maybe one of the things they want, if they're feeling overwhelmed, maybe they can ask Chat and be like, hey, Chat, I'm a product manager here at XYZ insurance company. What are other insurance companies like mine that sell to this market? What are they doing? How are they leveraging AI? It's like you could use that as inspiration.
Right. I mean, you're starting with the problem and you're saying are we replacing something that's dangerous, mundane, that this person's time is more valuable? Or are we trying to reduce the number of steps or the efficiencies in a workflow? Or are we trying to generate things for them to help them in their communications? Are things socializing or in making decisions around where they want to take things next? Or are we trying to help people make smarter decisions with more data there? And so figure out which of those plays you're trying to make, find some of that inspiration there, and play with some tools to do it and make mistakes. I mean, the other night, I have everything on Substack, and it dawned on me, like, I don't like their backup feature. It's really non-existent. I got 60-some posts on there now. So I had a problem. It's like, how do I get my content in one place? And so I sit there like the old geek I am and get out some tools like curl and wget, and they don't work because they've got these things like Cloudflare and other things up now. And I go around GitHub and it's like, hey, here's this repo, all right, that I could find called Scrapler. And basically, I sat there and fired up Claude Code this past weekend because it was double credits on off hours. And sat there and said, hey, let's target my Substack. And I just want you to get all my content onto my own machine so I have it. And so I learned how to use the repo. I learned some stuff about, some various things that I could do. I learned some things about using Claude Code and how to work with that and how to establish the conversation with that, and just got some things done. And I was able to solve a problem with it. And with that came some learning.
So Dean, before we wrap up, I got a question for you. And I'm not going to ask the question, is AI going to take away the product manager job? Because I think we've done a pretty good job of showing how the role of product manager is still vitally important, critically important. But let me ask you this. Every week, there seems to be a new model or new AI tool. How do we as product managers avoid getting distracted by the noise?
All right. So again, build that technique muscles here. I have really good context engineering muscles that I learned while using tools like ChatGPT and 04 and 03. Those muscles still work great when I'm using Codex or anti-gravity or Claude Code. So in other words, it's the key fundamentals. It's almost like saying, Dean, here's an aluminum bat instead of a wood bat. I'm still going to hit the ball. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a contact hitter, so I'm not going to hit out of the park. I'm still going to hit the ball where there's no human being standing. That's where my value was. It's like, hey, there's a gap. I'm going to put the ball where the gap is. That's easier than me trying to hit it over the fence. So again, because I know how to anticipate it. I know, I have the technique figured out. In fact, I would tell you that you're going to strike out if you don't have good technique, because you've already struck out before you walk out of the dugout. All right. It's not going to be the fact that, I know how to do these different type of nodes in N8N. Mm-hmm. That's great, because in 2 years, that tool's going to go in some other direction. And so are you. The other thing is, Joe, the role is changing, right? AI is changing the role. It is putting different demands on us. Okay. Those who think they can get away without doing any coding or any contact there, going to be hard. All right. It's going to be hard, because I do think they want to see people who can basically drink their own champagne or eat their own dog food, that can do show me versus tell me here. Because a person who knows how to keep their own house in order, product management house order using AI, is probably going to be better than someone who does it when it comes to solving the problem of someone in an insurance company trying to keep their house in order. And vibe to learn, not to earn.
Ooh, all right. So that's good, Dean. So Dean, what is the biggest key takeaway from your perspective? You've shared a lot of really amazing knowledge.
The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. Strategy, all right, without tactics is the long road to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. But if you didn't do it then, the best second time to start is today. So put all those together here, right? And figure out, okay, let's start with a problem. How do I use AI to accelerate or amplify what I'm trying to do? Get a small win under your belt. Don't get sucked into the vortex of, hey, I can pickle this, I can pickle that, I can put a feature, and all of a sudden you got Frankensoft. And again, prioritize technique over tooling and vibe to learn and not to earn.
My big takeaway is don't feel FOMO when you're reading every newsletter about AI. Fight the urge to feel that you're not doing all the things. But I would say there is some interesting stuff out there, but the best way to figure out what is interesting and what's useful to you is to try it for yourself. Don't just think you can read or take the Maven course or do the thing and then all of a sudden it's magic. It's really not. It's best if you do the hard yards and experiment and iterate with yourself.
I mean, I agree with that.
The AI era that we're in will amplify the best product managers. But what it'll also do is it will expose the weak ones.
Yep, absolutely.
Dean, as always, it is absolutely amazing to have you back on the porch. I can't believe it was October of 2024. We will have you back sooner.
Cool.
I want the prognosticating. I want the predictions. Like I think we need to bring Todd back here so we can have that prognosticating discussion. So we'll do that in a few more months. But I'm eager to hear what's on your mind in terms of what's going to be happening.
Maybe we can talk about agentic feral cats the next time.
Maybe.
All right. Well, I had to put an animal in there somewhere, right?
I know.
Thank you for joining us on the Product Porch. We release new episodes every 2 weeks. You can also find us on LinkedIn for more content. We offer a special thank you to AJ and Jack Blockhair for the music. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts of this podcast are their own and do not represent nor necessarily reflect those of their employer.